What's up everyone, John from ARTV. As you know, I cannot review every single album that comes out on my channel, much to many of my viewers' dismay, but I just can't. I'm not the Needle Drop, I'm not Spectrum Pulse, and I'm not a machine. I cannot, for my sanity, review everything that comes out. So I've decided to put out a video, finally, I meant to do this last year, where I actually cover a lot of albums in one video in a unique format where I play catch-up essentially on albums that I might have missed reviewing. Now, I want to put this out there again because every time I don't review something, people are like,
"Oh, John, why didn't you listen to this album?"
This is a PSA. I actually do listen to many albums that I just do not review. Maybe because I don't have time, I don't have a strong enough opinion, whatever it might be. Some of them I just maybe slept on, and that is definitely the truth here. We'll talk about some of those as we go along today, and I do feel like I did a disservice and gave a kind of a backhand, kind of that cold shoulder to the indie community this year. So we're going to be reviewing a lot of indie albums, some other ones, some critic favorites and that sort of thing. Some that I gathered from other critics' year-end lists that I might have missed throughout the year. So without further ado, I have my girlfriend Hannah off to the side here. She is going to be holding up some of our transition cards. I just about died in preparation for this video, whether it be actually making those, which didn't really take that long, but it was just preparing, listening to 15 different albums, and I'm going to be reviewing all of those in one video. We're going to be going over like random specific questions, all these other things, and best songs on the album, rating each and every one. So please, drop a like on the video. This has been a long time in preparation. Let's get on with the very first one. Converge are a band that I just wasn't familiar with up to this point. I had heard the name a few times and I knew that critics really seemed to love them, but just kind of phasing out of some of metal and metalcore, I just didn't know if I'd be into it. But I had a viewer that recommended it to me in the comments. They said they'd been listening to it just since it came out on repeat and gave me a couple of reasons as to why I should go ahead and stream it. I checked it out on Apple Music and I did not regret it whatsoever. I remember driving around to this the first day that I heard it and I just felt that gut punch, that soul-crushing impact of those layered guitars, the thrashing mentality of the music, and the lyrical content that really cut like a knife and dagger as well. It's furious music, but there's also definitely some provocative lyrics there that make you think. Provocative in the sense that they pull something out of you. They pull a response from the listener, and that's just not something that I expected while listening to a band like this. Something so heavy isn't always my cup of tea, but Converge, the Dusk In Us, it definitely was. I would say that the best song on here is A Single Tear. This one opens up the record. It was actually one of the singles. I love the music video for this as well. Just something that really grabs you. It's like, oh my god, this is something where you pay attention to that guitar. It's such a dynamic that they have within the band. And it makes me want to check out more of their music because I know these guys are titans of the industry, at least in the terms of metal and metalcore at this point. And I want to see more of what they have up their sleeves in their past discography. I'm going to give the Dusk In Us a 3.5 out of 5. I think there's definitely a replay factor there. I've really enjoyed coming back to it in preparation for this video and just checking out music that I really liked for the year in general. The Chain Gang of 1974 is actually just one dude, and I think that this dude is pretty damn talented. Now, I actually got into this band's music because of Alt Nation years ago with Sleepwalking. It was also featured in Grand Theft Auto, which I thought was awesome. Their song Sleepwalking is just kind of an instant classic, something like almost a Midnight City by M83 in my opinion. Now, this new album somehow flew under my radar, even after checking out Looking for Love, the lead-off single from this project. That one had a lot of spunk and spirit to it, definitely a callback to some more nostalgic times, older times in music, and some of the tracks like Wallflowers, and all these other tracks that just call to mind a certain feeling. I Still Wonder, and obviously something like Forget, which I did put on my best of the year. If you're into like synth pop, guitar, anything like that, this album is a must hear. I think what kept me coming back was the fact that there's such a charm to the vocals. There's still a sense of mystery there, and the way the guitars and the synthesizers all line up, it's just kind of that perfect chemistry. You know when you get lucky, maybe scratching off a lotto ticket or something like that, and you just feel like you won something. That's what I felt after listening to this album. I definitely feel like the best song here is Forget. It's a great male and female rotated vocals song, and it has that building suspenseful intro that I love so much. And then the breakdown of those lush guitars, the glossy synthesizers and keys just shining all throughout the bridge of this track. The vocals soar from both parties here. It's an epic finale, and it's something that reminds me of the 80s in the very best way. I'm going to give Felt a 4 out of 5. I think that this was a very, very enjoyable album, and I do think you guys will love it as well. I once again found myself struggling to love a project from this critically acclaimed indie darling band. It's The National and their new album, Sleep Well Beast. This is something that I did find enjoyment and beauty in. The instrumentation is undeniably lush. I love the fact that they really changed it up. I've listened to their albums in the past, and they felt maybe a bit more bleak. Not that this one doesn't. The vocals are probably the most inaccessible part for me, but some of these tracks did grab me, and I think that the instrumentation is a big reason. There's some synthesizers, maybe just traces of electronic music, but also a focus on guitar grooves and a bass rhythm as well. It's at times touching, and the instrumentation is definitely great. I really do appreciate the refinement and the nuance of their style. It's just that it doesn't always keep me glued to the speaker. The sound kind of fizzles in and out at times for me. The best song, in my opinion, is Karen at the Liquor Store. This is one that surprised me. It crept up on me. It has a nice story to it, and the instrumentation, while kind of dark, is very inviting in an odd way. I like this feeling that I get. I feel like I'm just listening to a story being told by someone who has lived a lot of life, if that makes sense, and just something about this track really attracted me to it. Honestly, I can't give this record more than a 3 out of 5. I just don't see myself coming back to it much in the future, maybe a few songs here and there, but as a whole, not so much. I had a lot of fun jamming this new record by the Canadian indie pop band. There's a lot of spunk in the guitar and drums, plenty of spirit in the vocals and lyrics as well. Just an album it's grounded. They built upon what they laid down with the first record, which, yes, I did hear. Many people seem to think that I didn't hear that record, but I thought it was very, very solid, very good, actually. And this album built upon those qualities, and I obviously am a sucker for a female-led and sung band, and Alvvays is just that. To me, their sound definitely is influenced by several different things. I could see maybe a bit of dream pop, definitely some more straightforward indie, maybe traces of punk, definitely alternative music as well. If you're into rock music in general, I suggest giving this a listen. The vocals are definitely something that aren't necessarily gentle, but they're there, they float on these tracks, and they really send good vibes. I think the guitar, drum, and bass grooves are all very tightly knit as well. The songwriting is there, and maybe not at all times, but it's definitely strong through and through and worth listening to. This album is only about 30 minutes long, just over that, and it's an easy consumption. I think the best song here is track number 9, Saved by a Waif. This has a great chorus on it. The vocals hit a higher register, but it's so catchy, it's orgasmic, and it makes you want to play it over and over and over again. It has a great build up in the verses, and it's something that's so catchy, it's almost a bit sunshiny, peppy, but not so overtly so because you listen to the lyrical content and maybe it drags it down just a bit, but you just can't help thinking of summer and maybe of better times. It's one of those tracks that really just turns on the smile. I'm going to rate the new Alvvays album, Antisocialites, a 4. Once again, we've got a great record cooking here, and like I said, it's easily down the hatch, very easily consumable, and if you guys haven't heard it, please change that. N.E.R.D are back, and obviously Pharrell and company are in a different little decade than they were before. 2010, I think, was the last album. They did some stuff with the SpongeBob movie, but they haven't exactly been active in the 2010s. Pharrell is very much in demand in terms of his production, his songwriting. He's worked with some people like Gwen Stefani like he had in the past on hits like Holla Back Girl, and obviously now on her newer stuff. And Pharrell just, obviously, he made the Happy song. Everyone knew him for that for a while, unfortunately, and it's nice to see him getting back to what he kind of did in the first place. N.E.R.D has always been a little bit of an alternative, not just hip-hop, not just rock, but a little bit of everything. And on this new album, No One Ever Really Dies, which is apparently what N.E.R.D stands for. I didn't ever know that, but here you've actually got something that's a bit inconsistent. Now, there are great songs on there, the ones that feature Kendrick Lamar, and obviously Lemon with Rihanna, a banger right there. Something that feels like it's out of the early to mid 2000s, which is when N.E.R.D were really coming up in the first place. It's a great callback, and I'm glad to see it's actually charting on the Hot 100, their first ever Hot 100 hit. And here on this album, though, the solo tracks just really float out there. I'm not their biggest fan or anything like that. I'm not going to say that I am or have been in the past, but this album made for a couple of good songs for me and really not a ton beyond that. In terms of best songs, it's really a toss-up between Don't Do It with Kendrick Lamar, which I love the guitar that plays just loudly in the background and unabashedly so. Something where you have a fusion of rock and hip-hop. I would probably listen to a lot more hip-hop music if there were more guitars in it, especially in this modern trace where we have all of the trap music and we just need variety. I really do enjoy listening to hip-hop, but it takes variety, I think, and somebody needs to keep pushing the envelope. So definitely Don't Do It. That's high up there for me. Kenny killed it on that one with his bars. But I have to give props to Lemon as well. Rihanna comes in, starts rapping, and I didn't expect it. It's badass. It's awesome. I'm going to be nice and rate this a 3. I think that maybe it deserves a bit less, maybe a 2.5, but I'm going to say a 3. This long-running rock band assembles a well-made album, How to Live as Ghost, with some definite standouts, a nice rock sound overall, but I can't say that it's going to be for everyone. I mean, it feels a bit sluggish at times, it does drag its feet here and there, but it should get the job done for anyone who's just looking for a taste of rock that's missing from much of the mainstream. They definitely go there in places in terms of like the lyrics that they put out there, something that's more intelligent, a little bit deeper and smarter, but not so deep that like the indie people are going to be on board and calling them like, oh wow, these guys are just, you know, the next thing to pay attention to in rock. It's one of those albums that could get the job done for you, and I had one viewer in particular, Joseph, that had requested them so many times, and I wanted to check out the album. I didn't get to it until maybe October or November. I can't remember when it originally came out, but I did enjoy it overall. I think it was a pretty good project, but I can't say that it stuck in my memory big time. I think my favorite song here was Catacombs. It just had a nice sound that reminded me of older 10 years, but also kind of put a charge into them that made me think, okay, these guys definitely still have life in them, and listening through this project, I picked up on that, but this is one of those moments that just kind of made me think, alright, they're not just phoning it in, these guys actually still have something to say. I'll give the new 10 Years album, How to Live as Ghost, a 3.5. The very talented prog rocker mixes things up for a prog meets pop album with a lot of very, very smart sensibilities to it and other spirits as well. The results here are great, and this album is something that I thoroughly enjoyed from start to finish, or should I say, from the start to the bone. I really hope I find the time to check out more. I actually have heard Hand Cannot Erase, thanks to Spectrum Pulse, I believe it was, my fellow critic, that reviewed it and put it very high on his year-end list, I believe, a couple of years ago in 2015. I checked out the record, really did get into it, but I do want to hear more of his older stuff. Definitely, I do hope I find the time. Favorite song here is the same Asylum as before. This is one that definitely feels like a concoction of something that is very uplifting from the 80s and maybe something new as well, because the verses kind of contrast those power chords just leading up to the ba-na-na, ba-na-na. It just feels like I'm about to work out in 1988, but at the same time explode into some sort of acid trip. I don't know. I'm weird when I listen to music. I get very specific visions, and that's the vision that it gives me, and if it didn't translate that way, it's a good thing. To the Bone gets a 4. Totally understand why people love it. I am definitely on board with it as well. I finally got to check out the new album from Tiger's Jaw towards the end of the year. I really like this band's offerings that they have. I think I like the female vocalist maybe a bit more, but the rotated male and female vocals definitely help seal the deal on some of these moments. In places, maybe it does feel a bit too shiny in terms of production, but it's not a huge flaw. It's something that I can definitely forgive and overlook because there's plenty of other standout moments that make up for it. It's an enjoyable, not a long-worthy LP. I feel like this is one of those bands that is on people's radar, but in the sense that they know the name or maybe they saw them open for someone. It's one of those bands that I feel like is known in the scene and like the alt press community. People talk about them, but I never really gave them that much attention until this year. This is the first full-length album that I've heard, and I had only heard a few songs up to this point. My favorite song here is Guardian. A great chorus sticks in your mind. What more could you ask for from a band like this? The backing vocals and the way that they're paired up sounds excellent. The guitars are really clean and the drumming is fantastic as well. Just a nice, shiny, little poppy leaning track that has a lot of wit and charm to it. I'm gonna give Spin a 3.5, a record that I would recommend to you. Gospel meet punk. This is a weird band, at least for people that watch my videos. I feel like I don't talk about a ton of experimental stuff, and I'm not always listening to a ton of it myself, but I actually watched Deep Cuts, a fellow YouTuber. I watched his year-end video, and he really got me interested in checking out this project more. I had heard it a couple of times, and I said to myself, okay, let's listen for certain things, let's listen to what makes this special, and I'm really starting to get at this point. Underside of Power is a very gripping album, so well done and very deserving of the acclaim that it's achieved. It's one of those almost soulful statements that has something that makes you feel like you're on the edge of your seat, like watching the apocalypse play out in front of you. You're not quite sure if it's a movie or real life, but maybe it's turning into real life. And the way that they grip you on tracks like Cleveland or even the opening or the title track, there's something to offer all throughout, and I definitely feel like this is one of those albums that's very special. Even in its instrumental moments, it never really loses its pacing or its footing. It's something that's very confident and knows what it's set out to do, and it accomplishes it very well. Cleveland has to be the best song here in my opinion. It definitely takes the cake. It has so many elements that I like about Algiers in the first place. It has those vocals, the way that it transcends just rock and gospel, and it just fuses a lot of different things together, but it also tells a story and makes an impactful statement. This song is not the most ferocious that they've ever made by any means, but it definitely has a lot of tension rising, and it really just expels that with the music as it goes on. The Underside of Power gets a 4. This album definitely should have been on my radar sooner, and honestly, it probably would have ended up on my year-end list as an honorable mention if I had known about it, at least enjoying it in the sense that I am now. It probably would have made it on the list in some capacity. Trivium, The Sin and the Sentence. What a great title. I like that a lot because you've got like the wrong deed and then you have the punishment. I don't know, something about that stuck with me. Trivium are one of those bands that I do enjoy at a surface level. I've heard plenty of their songs over time. One of my best friends is a huge fan of this band. Just saw them live recently, and that's kind of what kickstarted me getting into this album. It's something where I definitely had a lot of viewers urging me to check it out. I just never got a chance to do a review, even though I did hear it pretty shortly after it came out, but I really like this album. It's something where not every single track has like the best moments and qualities of Trivium, but still, it's a gripping listen, especially in the world of metal that I'm not always so involved in. This album just hit me. I think it's got many great songs that really unlock it, and even if you're not really into metal or hard rock, I think that you should give this a chance because the lyrics here are definitely better than a lot of other projects that I've listened to in recent metal, and it's something that on an instrumental level, you just have to appreciate it, at least at that core level. For best songs, it's kind of a toss-up, a three-way toss-up for me. Other Worlds is a big one, a great thundering chorus, loud guitars. Then you have Beyond Oblivion, which reminds me of Cell Dweller. That's definitely a compliment with that comparison. Clayton is such a talented musician, and if you're still sleeping on Cell Dweller, even though the last project wasn't that great, please change that. Maybe Wish Upon a Black Star is a good starting point for you. And then we have Thrown into the Fire, one of the singles, and the closing moment from The Sin and the Sentence. This one is furious. I love those pounding double bass drums, the loud thrashing guitars, the solo, the vocals, everything about this is riveting. I'm gonna give this album a strong 3.5, maybe even a light 4. I would say that there's definitely a possibility for me to at some point upgrade it to a 4. This was a last-minute addition to this list and video because I had someone tell me, I think on my Best Songs of the Year video, they were like, well, I like this list, but there's something that I wish you had checked out and I think you would really like, and it's this band called Drab Majesty. They are very small. In fact, I think it might primarily just be one dude actually doing this, but it's a very visual thing that goes with this as well. If you look into the music videos for Drab Majesty and the album The Demonstration, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. But it's in a very alluring feel, kind of all-encompassing. Once you get lost in this music, you really get lost. But the problem is with this record, even though I like much of it, it doesn't really go anywhere a lot of the time. It just kind of stalls out and loses you with the whole nostalgia trip thing. Like, oh wow, this sounds like something out of a sci-fi film from the 80s. And it works for a while, but trust me, it kind of wears thin and it starts to lose its charm after a while. Still appreciate much of this project, just not always hooked. Honestly, I really think I'm always going to be up for an 80s trip because I love so many bands that are influenced by the 80s, like the 1975, Churches, and even a lot of waves of stuff recently like Paramore. It's drenched in an older sound, but they're able to put a fresh perspective and spin on it, so no, I really don't think I'm going to get over the 80s worship anytime soon. I'm just such a sucker for a synthesizer and guitar combo. I'm gonna be nice and give this a 3 out of 5. I could probably go with a 2.5, but I do feel like maybe it merits like some Night Drive type plays. It's perfect for that. If you ever watched that Comedy Central show Moonbeam City or Moonlight City, whatever it was, I feel like some of these songs are perfect for that soundtrack. Fleet Foxes are another one of those critically loved and acclaimed bands that everyone was salivating over once they finally announced their return earlier this year. I've never been like a massive fan. It's been about 6 years since Helplessness Blues. I know Fantano is super into that album. It never 100% clicked for me, but you know, maybe that's just for my mainstream ears. Terrible music taste, I didn't get it. But Fleet Foxes and their new project here, definitely kind of beautiful. Like there's a lot of stuff here that's densely layered. The vocals and the harmonies are always on point, and some of my favorite tracks here revolve around things like that. The subject matter is at times bleak, but at times hopeful as well, and I like the mixture. They kind of rotate and keep you guessing in a sense, but they don't do it often enough to really just keep me paying attention the entire time, entirely focused on it. There are a lot of great aspects to this record, a lot of great qualities. I like the guitar tones, just the atmospheric ambience of some of the moments, but overall I can't say that I am 110% hooked or anything like that. What's the best song, you ask? Well, it's kind of a toss-up between On Another Ocean, January, June, and also Kept Woman for me. Kept Woman is something that is very, very graceful and elegant in its presentation, and I do like the layered vocals. There's so much, just a great quality that you can really just mellow out to. Something like that just grabs you and doesn't let go. But On Another Ocean is a beautiful tale, even though it's not exactly the longest track here. It maybe feels a bit long towards the end, but I love it so much. There's so many good qualities that you just want to replay it. Even if you don't like every single part of the song, there's something about it that's just oddly gripping. Feel your feelings, fool! The Regrets are one of those bands that I had heard a lot about, and I'd even heard some of their songs, but for some reason the switch just never went off in my head that said, hey, you should maybe hear like their album or something. I don't know, you're a music critic, you listen to music, maybe you should check out the album, at least casually, just for your personal entertainment. But that never really happened until maybe October or November of this year, and once I did, I was pretty hooked on it. Honestly, the sound of this has a little bit of Riot Girl, a little bit of punk, and a lot of fun. There's just a spark that's lit and never really goes out as you listen through this project. You can definitely tell that there is a powerful feminine statement coming from this record. There are, I believe it's 3 women and 1 man in this band. If I'm mistaken, please don't crucify me in the comments, but I do like that. You don't see a ton of bands that have more than 1 woman in the band, and seeing this band coming through with just kind of a pummeling, crushing sound, a lot of great messages, it's awesome. Feel your feelings, fools. The best song here is Pale Skin. I love the guitars on this one, a nice little guitar solo and bridge there. Great vocals, kind of clicking drums as well that drive this the entire time. It's one of those songs that maybe doesn't feel as bright and vibrant as some of the others, but it doesn't make it any less important. The Regrets get a 4. I really regret not checking this album out sooner. Tyler actually shows a lot of depth and creativity and a lot of promise for the future on his new project, Flower Boy. This is something that is obviously shortened to Flower Boy for obvious reasons a lot of the time, and I probably just got demonetized for saying that. In all seriousness, I do like the combination of kind of a jazzy feeling and vibrancy to much of the music, a darker tone. It's something very different than some of his recent projects like Cherry Bomb, for example. That was an interesting album that I did like, but in contrast to this, there are some bangers here, there's some ones that go hard, but there's a lot of introspection, and I like the soul searching and the way that it plays out. He also got a lot of great guests on this project, ones that I didn't see coming, and even though I never reviewed this and I didn't listen to it a ton, I just hate that people just assumed that I never heard this. It really just got to a point where I felt like it was too late for me to do a review, and everybody else had said the things that I would probably say about this. It's a really good album. I really liked it for the most part through and through. There's some great tracks on here that I'm going to continue coming back to, but I just didn't feel like I had a ton to add to the conversation. I personally feel like the best song here is 911/Lonely, a nice little 2-parter that shows how much flow Tyler the Creator has, but also how he can just change up in the middle of a song and own it completely. This is one of the best songs here, hands down. I'm going to give Flower Boy a 3.5 out of 5 overall. I wouldn't say that it's always my cup of tea, and I know that a lot of people absolutely love this, but hey, different strokes for different folks. It's a really good album overall, and I'm glad that I kept coming back to it. Well done, young, punky, spunky spirit, played with a fierceness, yet a calmness all the same. I really feel like Billy Joe Armstrong of Green Day's son, Jacob, has the reins in his hands here, and I really hope that he keeps pushing forward with this sound, because there's a lot of pummeling moments, there's ones that are softer as well, and it seems like it's somebody just figuring themselves out, as it should be, because I think he's like 19 right now, and if he keeps pushing forward with some of these ideas, then they could take over the world. My favorite song is Metaphor. My girlfriend will attest to the fact that I continuously jam out to this song ever since I discovered it. I was so late on this. I don't know why I didn't check this out sooner, because it's Jacob Armstrong. Are you kidding me? I love Green Day. Green Day's #1 fan right here. Are you kidding me? I didn't check this out sooner. Well, for some reason I didn't, but once I did, Metaphor really settled with me. And I heard that this song went through several different variations, even under Jacob's solo name and that sort of thing, before actually making it onto the Mount Eddie project. But once it landed on its final form, I really feel like they struck gold. This song has great vocals, a great intro to it. I love that long guitar intro, and then once you get to that catchy chorus that just, it's tight, it's crunchy, and it's very sing-along worthy. It's one of those tracks that probably would have landed on my top 50 had I heard it sooner. Mount Eddie's Chroma gets a 4 out of 5 for me. I can't wait to hear more. Whew, we are finally done. That just feels like a weight of like 100 bricks lifted off my shoulders because I'd been sitting on all these albums that I hadn't talked about or reviewed or else I knew I needed to check out, and the pressure just kept building and building, and I was like, I can't do 100 albums, and I originally had it at 10, but I upped it to 15. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope I talked about some of the albums that you wanted me to for 2017, and if I didn't, sorry, can't review everything like I said. In 2018, I do plan to cover maybe less albums, maybe more in like a 4-in-1 format sometimes in the future, but please, for all that is holy, drop a like on this video because I worked very hard preparing for it. Anyways, if you're new here, subscribe to the channel, stick around. I've got lots of other music related content. I am about to go into surgery very, very soon, having the tonsils removed, so I will be out of commission for 2 weeks, but I have plenty of pre-filmed content for you guys that I hope you will enjoy. Actually, I know that you will enjoy it. If you're able to support what I do on here and beyond ARTV as well, you can support me on Patreon. It's this annotation right here, or else the top link in the description down below. Make sure to check out Hannah's channel as well. It'll be linked in the description. If you want to see another special video that I did recently, it's right over here. Tap there, or see another recent review I did by tapping right here. Socials are linked in the description down below. Other than that, I'll see you very soon right here on ARTV.